Fast forward, any come out China so how AG politics avenue. Podcast or training because make headlines ne Jemre na EDB exomo ewa need me ho braximu onia yambo ingra eye political highways ni minimum ene eda ushiamia ya no subscribe to the channel. It's a notification bell so share na afia foforo so ensa ntumi kebe ni ma yanko eye political highways ni ma onia ejedema enya asem koto akwa na ni nyina ne se eye good for oil program. No kasei eja egu eye Dr. Bawumia chuma enya asem koto akra because ono na den sa ehyasia utimi ekofa sa program wisi e de baye na ni nyina se good for oil programming abo oman ne ka onia ene me no kasei public account committee omutrase ene no Bank of Ghana governor etimi adenedi se omu abo oman ne ka de say it no omo eba abeye eye audit na afi omahwe kwan ambafa so a ombetimi a restructure eye good for oil program no but as it stands now there omahote the operations of eye good for oil program
that the Gold for Oil program has been shut down due to billions of losses made over the years, which necessitated the decision to shut it down. According to him, there is an ongoing audit into both Gold for Oil and Gold for Reserves programs to determine the way forward concerning both initiatives. He has suggested that there must be a relook at the modules for both programs for relevant reforms. He was speaking when he appeared before the Public Accounts Committee minutes ago.
Since May of last year, we had to shut that down. An external audit is underway currently, and that entire program is being audited. When the audit is complete, we are happy to share audit findings with you. Then the G4R as well. There's an external audit that the Bank of Ghana board has authorized. The goal for reserves, that is the G4R. There also there's an external audit that's been authorized by the Bank of Ghana board, both from when it started until the end of 2024, thereabout, and then also how it operated during 2025. So these audit reports, when ready, we are happy to discuss with your committee. But I must say that these are programs that have, or more or less were introduced for to address specific national challenges. And we believe that going forward, what we have to do is to reform them, to reduce the cost further, to treat them as quasi-fiscal interventions. And that should support our reserves build-up going forward. I have some data here I can provide on the net losses for the gold for oil and also net losses for the gold for reserves. In 2022, the net losses for the gold for oil was about 74.44 million Ghana cedis. We did not have a net loss for the gold for reserves in 2022. Then in 2023, the net loss for the gold for oil was 317.69 million in 2023. On the other hand, the net loss for the gold for reserves, the losses in 2023 was 1,054.84 Ghana cedis. A little over 1 billion was the net loss for the gold for reserves in 2023. Then in 2024, the net loss for the gold for oil was 1.8 billion Ghana cedis in 2024. On the other hand, the net loss for the gold for reserves in 2024 was 3.8 billion Ghana cedis. Now, for 2025, and as we have indicated, this data is under audit, and we will want to wait until the audit is over. We will publish our financials by March this year.
Let's connect now with Christian Yali, our correspondent on the ground. Christian, what clarity did the central bank governor give to the losses?
All right, so Kemini, in fact, as a matter of fact, when you look at these quasi-fiscal activities, including the good for oil and good for reserves, which have both incurred losses, you know, over the period there has been that conversation, especially from the minority side, that followed a report from the IMF concerning the good for reserves. And so today, right in front of the Public Accounts Committee, we've had the Bank of Ghana governor admit to those losses under the good for reserves program. He indicates indeed that when you look at the model of the good for reserves program, it has a form of inherent cost, and for that matter, he has emphasized that the Bank of Ghana cannot continue to shoulder these losses being incurred from the Good for Reserves program. Now, when you talk about the Good for Oil itself, which is a separate program that started before he took office, that entire program has been shut down and is currently undergoing an audit. Also, for the Good for Reserves, which is still in place, he is asking Parliament to join hands with them to ensure that there is that burden sharing in terms of the cost that is coming out of the Good for Reserves program. And so that is the way forward. He indicates that there is that engagement with the finance minister, and he is asking Parliament to also join hands with those two entities, the finance ministry, the Bank of Ghana, with Parliament itself, to ensure that they fashion a way out going forward to look at how the model of the Good for Reserves would be revamped to reduce the cost that it has incurred over the period. So that is the way forward, or what he has suggested. But Kemini, when you look at it, in fact, what he has been saying is that the domestic gold purchase program losses soared to some 5.6 billion Ghana cedis in 2024. All of those are some of the reasons that called for or necessitated the shutdown of the Good for Oil program, and now there is that concern indeed about the Good for Reserves itself.
We're here. Thank you so much for talking to us. Christian Yali joined us from Parliament, where the Public Accounts Committee is sitting. Just ended is that hearing from the central bank governor, who's also talked about easing credit pressures for businesses in this country, as well as the cedi's forex performance. We'll head back shortly, but before then, Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Anthony Kwesi Sapong, has stated that the implementation of the new value-added tax reforms has yielded positive response from consumers, saying the GRA will work to ensure the targeted revenue is achieved. He says assessments were conducted even before the passage of the new laws being implemented now. According to him, government will not lose any revenue due to the repeal of COVID levy and the new VAT reforms. He spoke to the media a while ago after appearing before the Public Accounts Committee.
Where the VAT reforms is one of the comprehensive reforms that working with the Ministry of Finance has implemented as a policy measure to improve our VAT collections. And there are several policy measures that were introduced. One is abolishing the COVID-19 levy. Second was removing the decoupling. And then the third was ensuring that businesses and individuals can claim the entire input VAT, which previously about 6% of them was not claimable. And also for small businesses, the threshold of registering for VAT was increased from 200,000 to 750,000. That will allow businesses that do not have capacity to fully account for VAT to be exempt from registration. We believe that the reforms have been taken well by businesses and Ghanaians. As of last week, from Ghana Revenue Authority, we did market visits as well as visiting some of the major shops, and we're satisfied that most of the businesses have implemented the new VAT requirements. That in itself ensuring that consumers can benefit from the abolition of the levy, as well as also ensuring that government intention to make sure that the abolishment both returns close to about 6 billion to household has begun. So we believe that is going well. We're going to continue with the compliance and enforcement to ensure that these reforms stick and they become part of our processes. At the same time, ensuring that we use the VAT tax type to raise the needed revenue to support government's agenda for 2026 and beyond. That the signals are very positive, and indeed, before the bill was placed before Parliament, we've also did extensive assessment to give us evidence that when we implement these reforms, what will be the impact on revenue. And we did note, and of course the minister also announced in Parliament that impact of neutrality. That means that with the reforms,
GRA Commissioner General Anthony Kwesi Sapon will now head back to the committee. Chairperson of the committee, Abnose, has reconvened her members, and this time asking questions of the education sector. Answering them is the Deputy Education Minister, Dr. Clement Apak.
To rest. So now you know that my father was a pastor. Thank you.
But Minister, clearly from the dates, you are telling us that no member of the MPP should come for your funeral because it's 31st of January 2026, and you know that 31st January 2026 is a very special day on the calendar of the MPP party. But that notwithstanding, we will do the needful. Accept our condolences.
Madam Chair, most grateful. It was inadvertent. It was not deliberate. But I do concede that that may not have been the best day to pick.
But Madam Chair, just something striking. Growing up, we're told of kids from pastors and how they behaved. But knowing you, Chief, it looks like it confirms that assertion. It really confirms that assertion. You know, they say that the pastor's kids, sometimes they are Kwalabone and all of that. And the chief.
Madam Chair, this is on a positive note. You know, he's a good younger colleague. And in other words, he's trying to expose the fire in my belly. But let's say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. The old man himself, in his days at the University of Ghana, Commonwealth Hall, the effective number 7 winger, was much more active than my good self. So I believe in the womb of time, I would also transition to become a pastor. Very well. Mr. Chairman, I was indicating that GET Fund now has a lot more leverage in terms of resources with the decapping of the fund. So as part of that, the new direction is not just to ensure that school facilities come with the requisite sanitary facilities, but as you know, we are also advocating and pushing for the inclusion of accommodation for teachers, particularly the schools in the rural areas where accommodation for rent is difficult to come by. So it is within that context that I believe very strongly that we would address these gaps for our collective good, particularly for the girl child, Also in the wake of our free sanitary pass program, having sanitary facilities, in this case, washrooms, changing rooms, would be very useful if we are to achieve the policy objective. Thank you.
Auditors, take note of that. And Mr. Chairman, with that, I am okay.
Thank you very much. The next person is Dr. Giselle, please. It's on paragraph 46.
Thank you, Honorable Chair, for the opportunity. Minister, my line of query has to do with the inadequate sanitary facilities in public schools and public facilities. According to the Pre-Tertiary Education Act 2020, Act 1049, it requires that the Education Service constructs and equip public basic schools and senior high schools with adequate sanitary facilities. It's also emphasized in the Technical Guide of WASH 2014 that also requires that such facilities should serve not less than 50 people. So all these technical guides have been provided. Now, the auditors found that the provision of infrastructure in public schools is carried out by your ministry, which is responsible for the planning, funding, and implementation of such infrastructure. They also note that apart from the education facilities not having the adequate facilities, the education institutions not having the adequate facilities, there was a special audit in the Kumasi area where some staggering figures were found. For example, in KMA, that's paragraph 48, page 23 of the report. In the KMA area, about 125,000 schools had toilet deficits. That's 94%. KGs had about 12,000 toilet deficits. JHS had about 5,900, almost 6,000 toilet deficits. And senior high, about 62% of them had toilet deficits. So, Honorable Chair, the analysis goes on and on and on. But one striking thing for me is that the auditors identified 3 broad factors that are leading to this. The first one is that your ministry, which is responsible for planning and equipping these facilities, these institutions with these facilities, appear not to make adequate planning, adequate provision for building such infrastructure with those facilities, those complementing facilities. The auditors also found a second factor, which is that there are some structures that are supposed to serve this, but they've been abandoned. Part of the reason is that there is no water supply to these facilities, and therefore they are abandoned. The final one, which is more disheartening, is that even in cases where our development partners have identified these and supported us to provide these infrastructure, we have failed to hand them over for use by these schools. Honorable Minister, what do you have to say in response to these observations?
Let me respond by initially admitting that what you have just narrated is a clear example of a national failure. This ought not to be the case. And I believe that as a nation, we need to be a lot more conscious of the provision of adequate facilities. In this case, toilet and sanitary facilities in our schools. This obviously didn't happen overnight. So the lack of adequate provision for building these facilities, again, would be taken care of within the context of new projects going forward. The new thinking, as far as Get Farm projects are concerned, is that they must be holistic in terms of coming not just with the classroom blocks, but the toilets and the washrooms and the changing rooms, and even accommodation for teachers. That will respond to the first factor identified. Now, you also mentioned the second one, which is abandoned structures, which should be in use as sanitary facilities. Clearly, that is one that we can look at as a ministry and to see how we can put them to use. It will come at a cost, but we can look at it, conduct an audit, and do an appraisal about how much it will cost. And if we can make a good case, I believe we should be able to address some of the abandoned structures. The third factor identified by the auditors has to do with those facilities funded by donor partners, which for one reason or the other, the auditors have queried of not being put to use. We will look into that as well, and to make sure that those that are yet to be put to use are put to use. Because if the facilities have been constructed and are available, why would they not be put to use? Except, of course, they could be matters of payment to the contractors, which may then prevent the handing over of those facilities to GES for onward use by the students. So we welcome these queries. We would work at them to ensure that our students, our wards, are able to have these critical facilities to enhance teaching and learning. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Chair. And the Honorable Clement Apak that I know, and the Honorable Haruna Idrisu that I know, I'm confident that you walk this talk.
We and some who wait me cause watch and so. Mamma saw Jimmy or had a senator or body, and the Adumbi Edumini, and you have a same room, not a fee of some of Consum Cosopra. Ah, age politics avenue.